Good evening. I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting, Board of Finance for Monday, December 16th, 2019 to order. First item on the agenda is public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Seeing none. Item number 2, approve minutes of our regular meeting minutes of November 18th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, discussion? I know I had a couple, but anybody finds theirs before I do?
I had one on
Jeff, go ahead.
page 7.
Yeah.
Under expenditures. The first paragraph, the last line, to transfer premium credits to make the debt retirement, I think it should be principal, PAL. And then a little further down, it should be the last paragraph right before medical should be Mr. Hoy said they are in decent shape. And then the line below that, Mr. Ailes stated that there was a big jump in catastrophic claims.
Okay, I had one of those. And then just on page 4, fourth paragraph down, full paragraph, where it says it is a 1.5 million project, that should read and. This number of change orders is not, oh, well, is not unusual.
Right.
Caught another one. How about that? Anybody else have anything? Okay. Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Great. All right. Oh, I'm voting now. Hold on. Correspondence. Item number 3, Standing Building Committee minutes. I did read in here that I believe there was going to be a representative, David DeMeo, possibly present. I don't see him. There were a couple of things that I saw that I did want to cover.
I had a couple too.
I guess one of them is in the Board of Finance report. I actually probably should have a conversation with Mr. Ornstein. First of all, I was somewhat disappointed to hear that he was thinking of stepping down as chairman of that committee. He's been doing it for a very long time, but I do know he's got quite a bit of business conflicts, and it's very busy. But he did indicate he was going to contact me to clarify that we had asked some questions at the last meeting that the representative of the building committee didn't have answers to. I want to make sure it was clear that I don't think anybody on this board has an issue with if the person representing doesn't have the answer to the question. If they bring it back to the building committee, that's perfectly fine. But it seemed like there was going to be a clarification that any questions should refer to what happened in the prior month's standing building committee minutes, which we may have questions about it or clarifications, but if something's happened since then, I think it's fair to ask that question. I just didn't want the representative, who I think was James DeMeo, feel like he was put on the spot and he didn't have answers. Sometimes we don't have answers, so that's perfectly fine. That's why we ask the question. So I will have a conversation with him. It did seem like a lot of the questions that we had generated were answered in these building committee minutes, which is also par for the course. So with that, does anybody have anything in particular to bring up so that we can let the representative know? And in the meantime, I will try to have a conversation with Mr. Ornstein, just to clarify.
Is there any, I was looking at item 5, which, is there any sense of a ballpark figure for those boiler replacements that are projected for this building? They're talking about, I guess, with efficiencies to replace 5 boilers with 3, and to begin that work in May. But is there any ballpark of a cost involved?
Well, the ballpark would probably be in the I'm trying to remember, is that already part of a bonding question? Or is it something that was designed?
It's already in our capital plan.
It's in capital.
It's in the cap, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it in a prior.
Because that's going to be where the ballpark number is. Where it actually is, it hasn't gone out to bid yet. So this was just a presentation of the drawings and specifications by the architect.
On item number 12,
In the minutes, they talk about the contingency, they're recommending the contingency be increased 5%. I'm wondering, what is the current contingency percentage now?
That as well. You want to what?
Yeah.
Well, why?
That's a very good question. I don't know what they were carrying before. I know there's a contingency because that was years ago, that there were some issues with contingency not being enough, and now there's a request to raise it more. I don't know what the initial number is, so I think that's a good question to bring back.
Could this be a reaction to the issues we're having over at Adams with the change orders over there, perhaps?
I don't know if, that's a question, I would want to ask why that number. It may not be, and I'm just speaking based on my professional life right now, it may not be a particular project. It may be just in generality that there's material and labor increases that are starting to affect projects, especially if they're 2 to 3 years down the road. Again, I'd like to know what the reasoning is on that 5% and what it's going to bring it up to. So I think that's a fair question to ask. You both raised your hands exactly the same time.
I know, and brought them down exactly the
All right,
same too.
I'm gonna go Mary Jane first because I think you have an answer to something.
I have an answer, yes, to the first question. The estimate to replace four boilers and 2 boiler pumps with variable speed valves, which is how it was presented,
Yes.
was an estimated cost of $150,000, and it is going to be paid from a bonding authorization,
Okay,
a current bonding authorization.
so there's your estimate out of bonding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have another question.
Hold on a second,
Didn't
because,
somebody ask about the boiler, right?
yeah, no, you absolutely, thank you, yep.
Okay.
Linda?
so the contingency depends on the project, was raised from 15 to 20%, and I think there might have been one that went from 20 to 25. Part of it has to do with the fact that the costs came off of things that were done a while ago, so it's allowing for increases. But it depends on the project and
So
on why
it's
they
increased
raised.
escalation
Right.
from the previous estimate from
Right.
longer ago.
Right.
That makes sense.
So that's what, but it depends on which project,
Okay.
on what it went up from to.
Okay.
I was going to ask about item 10.
Jonathan, go ahead, and then Ken.
Oh,
have a
you want,
question. Go
I
ahead.
can defer.
No,
to-
no,
Go ahead,
go ahead.
John.
I just read that they were going to actually cut into the building to do phase 2 of the HVAC, and I just found that kind of surprising. I was kind of wondering, is that really the best way to go?
Is that ball?
That's going to be bonded. No.
Yeah, it is. I think that the issue with that is that they're cutting into the building because they didn't have a way to get in there in the first place. So they wanted something that was going to be more permanent, so when they have to access it again, there's a permanent way of getting in and out. It's just, when you cut into the building, it's basically putting a door, some sort of a hatch, that would actually be permanent, as opposed to temporarily doing it and then fixing it and then having to go back in again. So that's the way I read that.
Yeah.
Is it's a permanent way of
Just
getting in and out to
seemed like
service
quite a
it.
bit to go to replace the HVAC.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's just not a lot of room to fix these units or replace them, especially replacement. Fixing them is one thing, getting your body in there is another thing, getting the whole entire unit in. And if you have got a tight space, then you have to have another way of getting in. So
Alright.
that's probably, it's a
I
permanent.
just did a double take, when I
Yeah,
read
so
that.
20 years down the road-
Got to be a better way,
20 years down the road, if we have to replace the unit in an emergency, there's at least a way of doing it rather than having to cut through the building again.
There's no way to get the unit out without opening it up, and if you're going to open it up, you might as well make it a permanent access so that you can always get in and out.
Okay, so that's the issue. The old unit can't even get out. It's so big.
Yeah, in other words, that's bad planning from the initial time.
They probably built the building around the HVAC in the first place.
Yeah, not,
So it's.
we'll leave it at that.
We call this a free option. Just leave the door there. It's a free option.
Ken, you have a question?
Yeah, I see they're still investigating this performance contracting, and they have a new representative, according to these minutes, that's getting up to speed. So this has been something we've been waiting on for 3 months. Whether
3 months.
Sorry?
It's been longer than 3 months, but yes, we've been waiting on it. They are almost done with everything. They are working on trying to finish this off, and so we can really look at what the savings have been and whether or not we're meeting those savings. And so we are still waiting on that. The project should be complete. They're hoping by the end of this month.
Right.
The last pieces are just the controls.
Right. And it was in the Board of Ed, I think, maybe operation minutes that indicated that Cliff was waiting for information in December. So it's probably, if he does have it, it's very new. But it's going to be ongoing. I mean, we're going to have to continue to read the data to see how it's performing. So that's part of it.
When did you
But they have a new technician on board, and
And he's been very responsive as opposed to what was going on before. So that's positive. That's good.
Have the new controls, the electronic controls that allow Cliff to monitor the things remotely, have you gotten any feedback on, or is that what's being installed now?
Some of those are up and running, and there's still some controls that are still being finalized to get fully operational. So we don't have control of, I think, one building, and that's what they were working on. But I believe the rest of them we do have where we can control from remotely to maintain the buildings.
And that's working well?
As far as I know, yes.
Great.
is there any further update? I'm looking at item 7. Is there any further update on the turf field? What the cost is? Who's going to be assuming those costs?
Not us.
Nothing yet?
Was the work completed yet?
The additional infill is scheduled to be delivered at any point now.
Yeah.
One of the other vendors or the other contractors has agreed to distribute it on the field. So we are awaiting that delivery, and they're waiting for a break in the weather where they know it's going to be good for a few days, so they don't have to.
And no cost to the town.
No cost to the town is
No
what I'm
cost to the town.
thinking about here.
No, there are costs to the town. We are paying attorneys. We are.
Oh,
paying-
I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We are paying- we are
To
paying
clarify.
We are paying attorneys.
Yeah.
We are paying engineering firm. So those are the costs that we are incurring. in
Consulting and
order to
attorney,
satisfy-
but the
Exactly.
actual work to
I
be
don't
done.
want to I don't want to misrepresent.
No, that's true. I'm glad you did that.
Thank you. Yeah, I meant the materials and the distribution that's being done by the vendors and the contractors. The only thing, and I'll just note it, under new business here, whether it's here or under Board of Education report, I was pleased to see that there is the recommendation of a new facilities update report to be completed. I think over a period of time, it's been, what did we just say in our last meeting, which we'll talk about later, is something like 7 to 9 years it's been. And that'll help. And that will help with the master planning of capital bonding down the road. So I was pleased to see that. Anybody else have anything else on standing building?
The only thing I would add is for folks who are watching at home, that the Standing Building Committee, if Mr. Orenstein is stepping down, could certainly use some new members. And so to the extent that people are interested in that type of oversight over the town's projects, your help is appreciated and sorely needed, it seems to me. So please consider doing it if it's at all of interest.
Thank you.
I have one
Good
more
point.
thing on standing building.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the potential move of the Board of Ed to New England Road appearing. I think it was the last item in the standing building. Where is that? Is there any sense of how that's moving along? Because there is a property there that I would assume we're getting ready to sell once the schools move. Is this very early?
There's a complicated answer to that. Do not assume that it's going to be easy to sell that existing building. It is tied into, it actually shares a lot with a portion of the library.
Right.
It shares a septic system with a portion of the library. Clever attorneys can certainly work out those details. There are no parking spaces designated for that piece of property, so that could be a challenge in the future. But again, creative minds can come up with some solutions on that. In terms of the Board of Education consolidating parts of Central Office North, as well as something over at Calvin Lee, and then obviously the superintendent's office at Lathrop into the old science wing. There are two pieces. We are confirming with the state that we are past the clawback period of time that existed, and also the other piece is there's some concern about starting to do anything until we have completed the audit on the high school, which is just about underway, just started and got underway. That audit is conducted by the State Board of Education. So there is some concern about how quickly we move because there is some potential for some of the costs not being, Mike, you know this better than I do, but some of the costs as being deemed ineligible, and particularly as they relate to some of the change orders.
I guess the only thing I'm interested about is that the audit is happening now?
Oh, yeah.
I would have, is that because it was because of the paperwork being filed and then?
No, it's because when the state has enough auditors to get around to doing these projects.
So it was on there and then, because
It's all on the
it seems like it's taken.
We don't
that
conduct
project's
it.
been done for a while, and
No.
usually the audit happens within 2 years. That's why I'm like, it's been 4 years. Okay.
You're right.
All right. Probably a
And-
question I should have known the
and-
answer to, but that's a little bit surprising.
And if I would share with you some of the emails Mary Jane has sent to some of the folks up at Board of Ed over the last year, asking when we could get this project moved. So
Okay.
At one point,
Not to the Board of Ed, to the
To
state.
the state Board of Ed.
Yeah.
Right, right.
The state board- the
Linda
state
and I
board-
have tried to get answers from the state.
it's a
Linda,
state- it's a
their
state
office
board.
has been helpful.
for a while there was a consideration that we hire our own auditing firm to do this, because apparently some school districts have done that. That has not always been well received by the State Board of Education. That was an option that we were starting to look at because they could just
Do it quicker.
They didn't.
Right.
they-
Because of the length of time it's taken.
Yeah.
That was a consideration, but as Matt alludes to, it's somewhat easier to go through the state
More palatable. Yeah.
for them, yes.
Okay, yes, right. Okay.
And that's underway now, or is it about to start?
It's about to start. We just received the paperwork a few weeks ago requesting some information, so we're getting that to them, and so it'll be, the actual audit where they come to our office probably won't be till spring, but.
Yeah, I was
So-
gonna ask about how long do you reckon it'll take?
It takes a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then once the audit's concluded and they issue it, then that closes?
Right, we do have an opportunity to answer back
Mhm.
if, to request revisions.
We're
That
current-
doesn't always go over well, but we do have that opportunity.
Sure.
We are currently in the process of reviewing a preliminary position on some reimbursements as having been deemed ineligible. So we are currently working with our contractors, our two respective contractors, who by our contract are required to participate in the response to the State Board of Education relative to the justification for those expenses.
And by the way, I would add that could be because of things that have changed over the last 5-10 years that originally were part of were acceptable, and now they changed it, and now they want to know, well, why is that? It could just be, the answer could be as easy as, well, that's what we were told 7 years ago,
Yeah, prevailing
and now you
practice at
changed
that
it,
point
so
was okay.
you never told us, so. It's not anything that we did, most likely, it has a lot to do with the state rules, which happens. Anything else?
It's a lot quicker than the state has done audits in the past, honestly. It was not surprising to see 10 years after a project just a few years ago. So they're actually doing much better.
Okay.
Believe me.
It's relative.
All right, anything else on building committee? Move over to pension?
It's crazy when you
Oh.
stop and you think about what the standards are for record keeping. And, you know, in terms of a legal obligation to hold on to records and the storage and everything else, that to come back at somebody 10 years later, they count on that. They probably count on that.
Which is why we kept a whole separate filing cabinet
Yeah.
just for this purpose.
Yep, they probably count on it.
Have them come in and have at it, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, pension committee, minutes of November 20th, and the investment report. Anything on either?
Well, I think the most remarkable thing there is that we're looking at stepping down the return estimation. Guilford is already one of the lowest in the state at 6.5%, one of the most conservative. And looking at, and FIA, the advisors, and the current committee are looking at reducing that. I know that some big corporations or municipals are, for example, the water company are as low as 4%, but in terms of towns, municipalities, we're already very conservative. So it'd be interesting to see how that turns out.
Because there is an impact that they're talking about 6.25 and 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just an update, you may still be getting the minutes, but from your old Padres there. But Milliman is also recommending we take a look at changing the mortality table as well. I think they recommended that a couple of years ago. We said we're only going to do one, we're not doing both. So we'll have, I think we'll have a series of options that the pension folks will be taking a look at to recommend to you guys and us.
The only thing I would add is that I was going to bring it up under old business because we brought it up before, but there is, it was mentioned in the minutes that there is a OPEB meeting scheduled for December 19th. That's going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock to discuss the OPEB trust. Again, that's the plan to expand the pension committee responsibilities to include that OPEB trust, and I do plan on attending that, and then I will, of course, report back in January at our next meeting. But that's on Thursday morning, or Thursday afternoon, I'm sorry. So now I don't have to bring that up under old business. So,
Bob,
took
I'd
care.
like to ask you, how do you evaluate this growth? Looking at the chart, it was about $1 million growth, October to November.
Actually, Mary Jane reads that chart a lot better than I do.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
We're up to 67, almost 68 million.
68 million, it's about $1 million growth over
Yeah.
the month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 950.
So I just wondered if we could tap into Bob's expertise and see how he evaluates.
I honestly didn't look through to see exactly where it's coming from, but some of it is,
My personal portfolio
Well, we
performed
had-
pretty well in November. I don't know if everybody
Yeah.
else's did too, but
that is that's about it. It's about a 1% plus 1.5% increase. Nothing really, the big changeover since we changed advisors really was that we streamlined the process and moved toward ETFs. But the core, the underlying investments never really changed. You know, we were the same weight in everything. We just dropped the fee structure by going to mutual funds and ETFs, so we streamlined it. So the bond market did well. Fortunately, shares, of course, did extraordinarily well. For us to go up $1 million on 60 from 66 to 67 or 67 to 68 in that month is about right. I mean, we've had that sort of performance
But
in the
this
past.
report
And
is
now just-
October, this isn't November.
Right.
No, that's true.
And I'll just add, this is a snapshot in
September,
time. You know, if you have your own investments,
change overnight.
it can change from day to day.
Yeah.
So this, you know, I report on a monthly basis, whatever the fund has at that particular time. We do rely on our consultants to speak to the committee regarding fluctuations that we have had or that we expect. But as pretty as this is, it's really just that day. It could change one way or the other.
Just a snapshot in time.
That's exactly what I said, yep.
Just look at the realized gains compared to the unrealized gains. You see with the realized gains, we had a little bit of loss but the unrealized gains were definitely up.
I'm looking at this right, can't follow the lines all the way across, but did that also include a significant transfer in that month?
Yeah, but it's transferred within.
Transfer for a lump sum?
Right, lump sum into cash.
Right. No, it was just a cash, it wasn't a lump sum payout?
No.
So over the last 3 years, just from memory, over the last 3 years, it's grown from 60 to nearly 68 million, despite, the numbers of people involved in the program decreasing slightly. This doesn't mean that our obligations go away, of course.
It's good to have a voice on the board.
Yeah, we'll take it.
I'll start going to the meetings again.
We'll take those numbers.
I feel a little helpless.
Thanks, Bob.
I missed the last meeting. I feel a little helpless.
Anything else on pension? Otherwise, we'll go to item number 4. Review and accept a report of expenditures for the Board of Education for November 2019. Linda Trudeau, Vin Baglio.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as you know, I was the reviewer of our expenditures for November,
Yes.
and I made a motion at our meeting that was approved, to approve the expenditures of $4,417,631.52, and that was very much in line with our total expenditures for the month of November of last year. If you'll notice, the overall percent expended and encumbered this November was 35.67 as compared to 35.80 of last year. And then there were a few items that I highlighted on the first page under employee benefits. The unemployment, first thing, the pension item is higher than last year, and that's because the contribution to the town pension plan increased from $560,000 to $700,000. And then a few other items under employee benefits. Unemployment is lower than the prior year due to the number of claims. They're less than last year. And life and disability lines are also lower than last year. Under purchase services, one of the items that I highlighted was legal services. You'll notice the percent expended and encumbered was 69.67 this year compared to 37.43 from last year. And that's a result of 3 contracts being negotiated this year, the administrators, the teachers, and the custodians. And as Paul Freeman mentioned earlier, the teachers' negotiations went into mediation, so that expended a lot more for legal services. Last year, we only had 1 negotiation, that was for the secretaries. Also, other contracted services, there's a significant difference in terms of this year. It was only 17.35% as compared to 50.45%, and that's due to the Branford Erase Program, adult education, $90,000, and that's due to the timing of the payment to the Branford Erase, is that the correct? Yeah. And then tuition line is significantly, well, not significantly lower, but considerably lower than that of last year, and that's also due to the timing of payments.
And the budget increase. Yes, timing and the fact that the budget went up a lot for this wisely.
I had 3 questions.
Oh,
I
did
don't
you?
interrupt you.
Yeah, did you?
Oh,
Go ahead.
good.
Go.
Oh, good.
Okay.
If you had more, Vin, go ahead.
I have some more, yes. Under,
Cover them.
let's see, what have we, under capital, the equipment instructional, you notice a credit of
what looks like a credit of $231,984.89. That's due to payments over 5 years.
Well, it's the
And
reimbursement
it's
from the
reimbursement?
technology lease for purchases that were made through the lease.
That's it for me from the financial statements.
While you're there, just real quick,
Yeah.
the site improvements, being at 90%, the encumbrances are, usually you would see a lot of encumbrances. There doesn't seem to be as much, but the expended amount is more.
90%.
Was there anything that triggered that more? I'm trying to remember if there was anything in the last couple of months that triggered a higher expenditure on site improvements.
There were a
Or
lot
was it
of,
just they were front-loaded?
yeah, front-loaded. There was a lot of projects that were completed over the summer.
Okay.
Parking lot at Leet was one of the big ones. There were some projects that were all completed
Mhm.
earlier in the summer. And so he front-loaded it.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Ken.
two areas. Custodial has expended and encumbered is at 82% at half the year. Is that going to be overexpended?
No. No.
Do you know why
but
it's?
They do, it's the timing of when they do bulk orders. So they have all the schools compile an order for a certain period of time, and then they place the orders. So it's done as bulk orders, and it's just the timing, and that won't go over.
Mhm.
If it does go over, to be very small, but it
That's
won't.
basically supplies.
It's just basically supplies.
Okay. You had second? Second one?
Supplies total, does that include everything above it? Supplies is sitting by itself with.
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
total
okay,
supplies.
So
and
that's
materials.
so that's reasonably within.
There's also a fair amount encumbered in that line, too.
Mhm. Yes, it's pre-placing orders. Anything else on financials? See
I
if
was just going to ask about the IT salaries, information systems. It's kind of low. Don't they just get a regular check like everybody else, or?
Well, there's a position, a clerical position that the person has left, and we haven't replaced it with a full-time permanent person yet. They're looking at restructuring the department, and so right now there's just a part-time person in there filling in, helping out, so we're understaffed right now.
Not the hugest dollars, but just was curious why we wondered.
Yep, that's why.
Is tutors a new line?
Yes, it used to be included in another line and would actually get paid out of several different lines. So in order to clean it up, I pulled it out and did a separate budget this past year for tutors, so that we could better track that expense.
Which is why there's no comparison to last year.
And that's in-house tutoring for students? It's
Yes.
not like a coaching
No,
or
it's
something like that?
our staff
It's not
that does.
coaching, para,
It's
nothing like that.
it's our staff that does tutoring, or people that we hire to do tutoring. So sometimes it's a retired teacher that will come in and do tutoring for a student. So it's our staff, our employees, not an outside company.
Okay. Anything else on the summary,
Yeah,
minutes, warrants?
yeah. Two things. The operations committee. This harks back to something that I raised with on the Johnson Controls and ECG. Apparently, the reports before your operations committee were, we didn't realize the savings. Nobody's really happy with the current situation, and there's a new man on board. Are we going to be realizing any savings? Are we going to be realizing any payback?
We are realizing savings, but because some of the items weren't implemented earlier, that some of these implementations have been later, the savings has been delayed. So we are seeing savings, and it's just trying to finalize where that point is going to be, where we say, we're done, and now everything, we can really look at what the savings are. So we did meet with them last week, 2 weeks ago, and had a conversation about where we are and how we're going to be calculating the savings and how we're going to be reviewing our expenditures. I know the towns is a little bit different because their scope is much smaller, and I know they've seen bigger savings or seen their savings already more than what we have seen. Ours has been kind of slow coming.
If I could answer that in the most non-technical way possible, is that we are currently experiencing savings, and we are going to experience more savings, but we have to be more patient than we planned on being.
Right.
But
I think that's what it comes down to.
Is there a circumstance at all where we're going after them for compensation for missing targets?
At the end of the, yes. That's,
Right.
they come back and say,
I saw
these
that.
were your goals
Right.
or that we had for you, and this is where we fell short, so then there's going to be a reimbursement, and I don't know,
Do we find
credit or
ourselves-
reimbursement or some sort of it's part of the agreement that they get money back.
There's a guaranteed savings.
I know there's a
Guaranteed rate of return.
Have we crossed that line yet, or is it still
No.
to be determined?
Not
We're
until
still,
the
we're
dash.
still at the substantially complete project.
Okay.
Right.
In fact, on the town side, we just finished our last project, which was the streetlight conversion program, which
Right.
I think Mary Jane will talk to you about in a little bit. But we think we are pretty close to having realized the savings that had been projected in the original contract. You got at budget time last year, you saw several departments with energy costs drop dramatically. I think
Yeah.
the most dramatic one was the library.
Yeah.
in particular, so.
So I think from
So-
the minutes, we saw that we expect everything to be completed now by the end of the year, though? Is that correct?
That's what I'm being told, yes.
And then I guess what I'm curious about is that maybe we did have an expectation that we would get these savings over the past year, but we don't have a calculation to say that we did or we didn't, and that we're owed some kind of compensation.
They have the tools, they have the baseline energy consumption costs from prior to the establishment of the program. So it is a question of them starting to run the numbers to evaluate. First off, we have to agree on a substantially complete date, which is the challenge now. Our expectation is it goes back further than they currently want to establish it as, because we've been paying down that service for a year now. So there are some negotiations taking place with Johnson Controls in terms of their meeting the performance guarantees.
On warrants, page 9 and 10, just two quick questions. There's one for Naviance, for district renewal. What is that?
Software used by the guidance department.
Okay, I just was curious what the Naviance was.
It's mainly in connection with college applications. correct?
Yeah,
I believe
okay.
so, yes.
Okay. You know something about that?
Painfully familiar with it.
Did you say you had one on page 10?
Yeah, page 10, red thread, for 10,004. Is it Adams site improvement, is that carpet? Carpet replacement?
That's usually carpet.
Red thread is usually.
carpet.
I think it's carpet, right?
I think it is, but I'll double check.
So it's part of the carpet replacement program at Adams? Okay.
Right above that, on page 10, physical therapy, athletic training fee of $10,200. Is that a contract? Is that a?
It is a annual, that is 1/3 of the annual contract, and that is the trainer that attends all the practices and games. It's the athletic trainer. And then it's less expensive than us having an employee, and they provide multiple people when needed to be in multiple locations.
So what is his annual?
It's the $30,000 contract.
$30,000 budget.
Yes, we pay fall, winter, and spring season. So it's a
Okay.
3-part payment.
Can someone explain to me what this blue ribbon thing was? I mean, I hear that we're a blue ribbon district, and I mean, we'll take any award we can get, but I see above that Dr. Freeman had, under his name, is a reimbursement of close to $1,000 for that. And I think there were about 3 people that went to DC.
There were 4 people altogether, Dr. Freeman, Rick Masenti, Regina Sullivan, and one other person, went to accept the award. There's a number of different areas where they give these blue ribbon awards. I believe ours was on achievement, and there's some criteria that they use to measure, and we were awarded this blue ribbon for achievement.
For academic achievement?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we were one of 2 schools in
In the
Connecticut.
state of Connecticut.
Right.
The only high school. in
Only
The
high
only
Connecticut.
high school in Connecticut?
Right,
Yeah.
right. The other one, I believe, was a middle school.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on warrants?
There was an item for chairs at Adams. Are those for the classroom, or it was 30, that's on page 11, about fifth or a third of the way down.
Yes, those were student chairs.
Student chairs, like classroom, not for,
Right.
like,
They weren't staff chairs, no.
Okay.
They were student chairs.
great.
Okay, and then on the minutes. I think I addressed operations. There were 2 things here I highlighted. One was about, and I thought it would be helpful if it could be shared with us as well, and it might be shared during the budget presentations. But under item 6, received tuition report, there was a lot of discussion about the historical data of tuition. I won't go into all of it here, but it said at the end that Mr. Sands commented he believed a report showing expenditures over a 7-year period would be helpful and provide a perspective. I believe that during the budget presentations, there was historical information, but it would be, if it's possible, it'd be nice for us, for especially some of our newer members on the board, to see a 7-year trend of the tuition.
There will be the slide, which has the line that Dr. Freeman refers to as the Matt Hoey line, which shows the trajectory of expenses.
It's a cost avoidance curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am,
It's always very captivating.
that one includes tuition, transportation, and contracted services total. So I am looking to put something together that shows the number of outplaced students and costs for the year as a comparison going back. So there'll be additional information in the budget book this year that hopefully will highlight those
Okay.
changes.
And I alluded to before, there was some comments about this would be a good time to begin a conversation about putting together a facilities master plan, which ties into the facility needs assessment. So, again, I would wholly agree with that. So, that's great. That's it. That's all I had on minutes. Anybody else have items on the minutes? Otherwise?
So I did give you the tuition report.
Oh, you want to go? Do you want to go over that?
If you want. So
It doesn't look like it changed all that much.
It didn't change.
No.
So it is stable right now
Mhm.
for this month, or for November. We do have a couple potentials on the horizon. We are hearing of 2 possible students moving into the district that are looking for outplacements. They're not even registered in this district yet, so I didn't report them, but I am hearing of possibles. So it could change for next month, but it is the same as last month. So right now, we are holding steady.
Take it.
Yes, me too.
We'll take it when we can get it.
I'll
Yeah.
take that.
Jeff, did you have something?
No, I was just
You
going to.
wanted to refer to that? Okay.
Any changes that you're picking up in the food services area?
So they had a good month. So for November, they had a gain of $10,052.77. Overall, they're still at a deficit. As I said before, they did have some large expenditures for some, bless you, for
Gesundheit.
some renovations that were done prior to the start of school. But she's making great gains there. She's reviewing the menus. Part of the problem is elementary menus, what sells in one school doesn't sell in another. So when you're trying to do menus for all 4 elementary schools and trying to find something that they'll eat in every school, it doesn't always
It's
work.
like having 4 kids and trying
Yeah.
to make a meal for each of the 4 kids.
Yes. So we have some very finicky eaters at
And it
one
can be
school.
done at an expense.
Yes. So she is reviewing the menus and trying to
Okay.
make accommodations, but overall, she's doing really well.
Good.
If we can keep the equipment from breaking down, it'd be great.
Yeah.
We have some more repairs coming
Refrigeration.
that'll hit in December, so,
Is this to older equipment?
yeah.
Okay. As long as it's not the newer equipment. that was-
Well, even the high school freezer, it's not considered, it's not warranted anymore, so any issues with the high school freezer,
Yeah.
it's a repair on us. And there was an issue with the high school freezer, one of them. So there was something at the high school, the leap freezer and the steamer at Baldwin all went in December. Or had issues.
Timing is
Didn't need,
everything.
didn't need full replacements, but needed repairs.
Right.
How's it working at Adams now that they don't have to go outside to get the stuff out of the freezer?
They were very happy they don't have to go outside to get the stuff out of the freezer.
Right.
Yes. And from what I understand, the serving line is moving very well. The reconfigured serving line, it seems to be working.
And they're running up against the wall on biodegradable silverware and stuff. That's prohibitive cost.
No, but there actually is a shortage of paper straws. So,
That'll
yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Everybody wants them now.
And there is an issue, I mean, you can't get the other, yeah, the silverware is cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
That's very cost prohibitive. But there is right now a shortage of paper straws.
Save the turtles.
And you can't get juice boxes with paper straws, they don't make them. So a juice box, which is what the kids want to drink, only comes with plastic straws.
huh?
No manufacturer has come out with a juice box with a paper straw yet that is affordable.
So
That's
so
for
are
the
people
elementary?
boycotting, or students boycotting the juice boxes, or?
No, we're not selling them because we pulled out the paper, we
I
pulled
see.
out the plastic straws, so we pulled out the juice boxes.
So they
because we
can't
don't-
get 'em.
So they can't get them. They don't like drinking right out of the carton, some of the kids, so they won't do that. And we can't find something that comes with a paper straw. So there was actually been some complaints, some requests to have different drink options at the elementary schools because we don't have juice boxes.
The minutia, huh? Anything else to torture Linda and Vic with? Before we let you go, Vin, I understand that this is your last official meeting
Less official.
as a member of the Board of Education. He's reporting back to us, but he has served on the board for 2 years. And we thank you very much for your service and our visits with you, as much as they were limited. We thank you for everything you've done for the town. And
My pleasure, and it was an honor and a privilege to serve the town.
good,
So thank you.
okay.
He did extend his resignation date
For this meeting.
For this
until
meeting.
tomorrow, so
And
that he
it-
could be here tonight.
And it,
because
and
it was
it-
his-
and it, and it is,
He felt-
it is
he
very
felt-
appreciated.
he felt it
We-
was
We're
his
glad we
date,
got to.
Even though he said it would be okay if he came as his last final act, he changed his resignation.
Well, we didn't get, last month, we didn't get a chance to say anything to Bill Bloss, because he had resigned, and, he was off the board. So a couple of us purposely had him in to swear in a couple of us, so that we had the opportunity to
There you
thank
go.
him. So gladly, we didn't have to call you back, you were already here and you extended. So thank you very much, Bill, really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you. Have a very happy holiday, everyone.
You too,
too.
thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And on that note, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of November 2019 in the amount of $4,417,631.52.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, recusals? Okay. On to item number 5, review and accept report of expenditures for town government for November 2019. Mary Jane.
Hello.
Hello. All yours.
Well, we will start with revenues. Not too much to report. Everything is pretty much on track at this point in time. Overall, last year we were at 54.8, we're at 54.9 today. Last month I did report that I had anticipated finance interest hitting the 50% mark, at least by the end of the year, and we are already over that at this time. But otherwise, unless you have any other specific questions, I guess I will note fire department is still showing Medicare 1 month behind. I did check with the chief.
That 562 is,
Yeah, I checked that with the chief last week,
so we're not 8% behind, really?
No,
Just the Medicare payment.
correct, just the
Yeah, just a
Medicare
timing
portion
issue.
is a month behind.
How come the police seem to be making so much money? It's wonderful.
Those utility repairs on Boston Street.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going
Have you
on.
seen them out on the streets lately?
Oh, that's right.
Water tower's next.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
Every day.
Public Works is down 4% because of a drop-off in the sump dump?
Is that what, I'm afraid I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Public Works.
Yeah, if that's what it's showing, I didn't check on that. It wasn't significant for me to. Well, the stump dump, it's at 59%, so,
Stump dump, did I look at the wrong thing? I thought the stump dump was down $12,000.
Revenue looks like it's at 59.
right.
Well, it's not far off.
Get into the detail. on that
So
one.
it can't all be that.
Yeah. so-
Not far off, that's not bad.
It's not bad?
Not bad.
What would be bad?
Well, it is lower, it's 59%, but
being
it
half
is
it.
lower than last year, but,
That's just nothing, just a timing thing.
Yeah, it could be.
it all
Depends on what people
how
have
many
to-
storms we have,
Right.
that's,
Yeah,
the more storms we have, the more items are taken to the stump dumps, so
Right.
actually a lower amount, it might even be better for us overall.
Hey, we got weather coming,
Fix all
so,
that
yeah,
tomorrow.
that could change it, that could change overnight.
Tomorrow morning, literally.
Actually, the higher the revenues, the more we need to use the stump grinder from our good friends up in Durham, which we have to pay to use.
That's what I mean, it's good better for us overall, exactly right.
And just as a quick matter, that's not a negative number. That just means there's only 11,000 left to collect. We're not down.
okay.
We're not down that amount. That just means that's what's left to be collected in the fiscal year. Because we've already collected 16,500.
It's nice to see the selectmen's office setting the pace with the revenue this year.
Oh, yeah, we're just, all those sign rentals, you know, on a green, they add up. $25 a sign, really.
And when something comes in that doesn't fit in any other category,
That's right.
guess
Yeah,
where
We
it
get
goes?
it. Oh, you, don't give away the secrets. Come on, don't give away.
We got your line items, we got those line items.
Good to be king.
Yeah. Anything else on revenue? Expenditures?
Similar story on expenditures as well. I guess at this point, I will talk about the town properties line item as lower than last year. If you were to look in the detail, you'll see that the streetlight expenditure is only at 14% at this point. I've already done the budget for them for next year. Currently, our budget is $77,000, and I estimate next year's to be $35,000.
And is that a result of the Johnson controls?
A result of our work with Johnson Controls. We will be adding, however, an additional line item to this budget for streetlight maintenance. Now we own them. We have had a couple small items that we've had to repair, so the facilities director is working up some numbers for that. It certainly will not be
much bigger savings.
it's going to be a much bigger savings, but we are going to put a line item in there. We really don't know what that cost is going to be. It's going to take us a year, to figure out what a true budget for that line item will be. But we did have I think about $500 in expenditure this year so far. So we have added that line item in there. But overall, the savings is very good for that
Can
line
we
item.
buy some more?
Buy some more? Well,
We actually have a rolling stock for replacements, so we're We bought as many as we needed.
We're gonna go to the paper store.
About how many do we have?
Actually, in fact, it was a great exercise, because there were some that we found that we were paying for that were on private property, which we're no longer paying for, and we did not convert those. It was a pretty significant exercise. I think there's nearly 500, is it 400? It's the high 400s in terms of the number of streetlights that we're paying for throughout town.
A few hundred.
Yeah.
Capital.
Capital is just a matter of timing.
It is.
That's all it is.
Okay. Anything else on expenses? We can move to warrants, special fund warrants.
This
The,
money for the former science wing, town building improvements,
yeah,
I see the figure of 2,200,000 is within that funding source. Now there's talk about converting portions of that fitness center over for possible Board of
yeah,
Ed.
this is just the design.
Right, so design.
This is just the design costs
services.
to convert it.
Right. We've,
What's the
fitness center.
status of that right now, that fitness center? I know we donated something to them.
No, it's being used as a fitness center, but it's what we talked about before about the Board of Ed offices. So they're doing a conceptual design and looking
possible,
to see
the
Okay.
how it could fit.
Okay.
consolidation of Board of Ed offices, so we're just doing the preliminary design of that.
Yeah,
So
that's
they'll
all it
be sharing that facility
I'll
ultimately?
defer to
The
Linda.
first floor of that building is where the fitness center is located. The possible relocation of the Board of Ed offices would be on the second floor of the building. So the
I
fitness center would remain on the first floor, and that is there currently.
And as Matt says, there's some question as to whether
Some
we...
question is, when we pull the trigger on actually doing that? That's going to be $1 million plus project to redo that facility. But the sensitivity around the audit and the clawback is something that we want to make sure that we're clear of before we actually go any further. So this is designed, give us an idea of really what it's going to cost to do that.
Right, we can't plan
And there's a,
until we know what it's
larger
gonna
question
cost.
of, we will, at that point, more than likely turn the building back over to the school, the Board of Education, because that fitness center is primarily used by high school kids.
It's on the board, it's on Park and Rec's budget now.
Right, so we should flip that out. So
The Board of Ed offices are by the tennis courts there.
There are some by the tennis courts,
Some here in
On the green.
right,
the green.
right. And
So
then,
what'll happen to those if they,
well, that was a question, that was raised earlier. There is still a need for some folks in the what do you call it, the central office north. There are plans for that to be retrofitted for something else. They would close the facility at Leet, and they would close the facility at Lathrop House. And again, we talked earlier, the Lathrop House could potentially go on the
right,
market.
possibility of selling it, so.
Although there are some folks in the facilities task force who might have a better, more constructive use for that. I will tell you that the Friends of the Library will poke their head up and suggest that that is a facility that might benefit them as well. We have other challenges.
Yeah, it's prime property. I'd love to see it back in the tax rolls. We
Right.
can make it work.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, if we can figure out, the lawyers can get creative about splitting it off that lot and then also the septic arrangement, it would probably fetch, I think it's appraised at 1.3, is the number, so. And I won't ask Jen if that's a real number or not, but.
It's a discussion for another day. It's a couple of moving parts, as you say, but, who would want that location? If you're a law, if you're financial advisors, if you're a local bank who want to put their wealth management people in there, or instead of paying what they're paying out in West Guilford, it's got plenty of potential.
Plenty of opportunity.
Plenty of potential.
We agree. We agree.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on special funds, or we just move right into all the rest of the warrants?
Any update on our ongoing discussions with the Army Corps and the DEP?
Yes, yes, they are. We have an agreement in principle with DEP. We are partnering with DEP to get Army Corps' agreement that the restoration project that we are committed to with DEP will also satisfy some, if not all, of Army Corps' concerns for mitigation. Our consultant, Juan McBroom, and Janice Blazak are meeting on Thursday with the Army Corps of Engineers up at deep offices, so we're getting close.
Great.
We're quite a ways from where we were originally, where we thought Army Corps was only going to, was not going to allow a mitigation project, that it was just going to be fines. We're pretty sure they've moved completely off of that. Not fines, but compensation in lieu of mitigation project. There still may be some fines that will apply, but we're negotiating that with them.
Good. Sounds promising.
We're in a lot better place now than we were 2 years ago.
Great.
Anything else on warrants? Otherwise, medical? Medical was low for November. Is that going to turn into a catch-up?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
We have our draw on Thursdays, every Thursday during the month, and of course, in November, Thanksgiving fell on Thursday.
Okay.
So we had a draw on Monday, December 2nd, for $225,000,
Which would add
which is
to this.
really November.
Okay. Which would put us back into.
Yeah.
Not as high.
A
A little
Still
lower.
a little lower than projection, but definitely
So we
more.
can expect December to be really high, but 1 week of that would be from November.
Correct, right, because the following draw, they only draw once a week. So since they drew on the 2nd, we didn't have another draw that Thursday, so the following Thursday was over 500,000. So, you can say we're averaging $250 a week for the last few weeks, so.
Okay. I don't see anything else in that really to speak of. Is there anything else at all for Mary Jane? If not, entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of November 2019 in the amount of $2,373,077.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? I have a recusal from one of the special fund warrant payments to Antonassi Associates. Thank you, Mary Jane. Item number 6, committee reports, building permits.
Rocking and rolling.
Right, oh yeah, we're 5 months in, we're
Almost beat
we're almost
all of
beating that
18.
last year,
Yep.
yep. We'll keep track of that. There does seem to be a lot of home construction going on, even
Yeah.
a couple right downtown.
If we continue to run this way, we're going to be on a 10-year high.
At least, yeah. It'd be interesting.
Have you noticed any, I should have asked in the revenue section.
Yeah, since the change.
That discussion came up this morning. It was, this month's revenue and building permits was 43,000. And the question was, does that reflect an uptick based on the new fee structure that went into place on October 18th? Actually, we're about $2,000 less than we brought in November of 2018. So there's a significant amount of cyclical nature to these permits. So it's a little premature to figure out what the impact of the new rates are going to be, but we're pretty comfortable that it's going to be significant. So that's one of those buckets that you're going to have an opportunity to look at for enhanced revenue for fiscal year 2021, an uptick in that side.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some good data between now and then, because it's not going to be a lot of months
Right.
of having it, so.
We're also.
But even without the data, I think it's important to note that the rates that we're charging for building permits
Right.
are in line with neighboring communities.
Absolutely.
It's not like we're,
You're right.
Absolutely.
This wasn't a money grab.
Right.
This was clearly
Not
to
at
get,
all.
this
No.
was clearly to get us in line
Right.
with most of the communities around the state, and to simplify the process. We've just gone through a process. We are deactivating permit codes in our munis system that we don't need. And I think I met with Dorka Lindgren and Aaron Mannix, who are doing that project, along with Kim. And I think they deactivated on a commercial side. They deactivated 16 or 18 building permit codes, and on the residential side, I think it was 67. So there's some consolidation going on. So it's simplifying the process in addition to getting us in line with the appropriate methodology that our neighboring communities and most communities in Connecticut are using.
Yeah, for our customers and our staff.
And both, right? Yeah.
So it's
I-
a win-win.
I can tell you that, that one of the things that I occasionally have to deal with is addressing open permits from 6, 7, 8 years ago. And to the extent that this new system allows those to be identified and closed at a faster rate, it's a great thing. The staff have been great to work with to close these, but they've got to go and pull up a permit from 2012, then go inspect the property to make sure the work was done properly before they can close it. And so it's anything that, from my perspective, anything that can streamline it, outside from the builders and the homeowners,
Homeowners, right.
is
Well,
good too. Because when they go to sell the home,
Right.
it can often be an impediment to closing.
That's the biggest fire drill that happens over at Town Hall South is somebody like yourself comes in and say, I got a closing tomorrow. We think there's the real estate disclosure said, oh, this has got air conditioning. There's no permit for it. And everybody scrambles. But what we're also doing with Munis System is we're going to start to produce monthly or quarterly reports on open permits to red flag those that are over a certain period of time, to go back and say either you got to close these out with a homeowner or a contractor, or we're going to cancel them. So there's a process. There's another process on the back end, so that we can keep those records much cleaner going forward.
That's great to hear.
Geez, imagine using some technology in 2019.
Well, we won't have to do it again until 2040, right?
Let's hope not.
That'll be for somebody else to worry about that.
Okay, item number 7, old business. I'm going to actually do something I don't think I've ever done before. Well, I just realized it as I was reading off the number on the town for the approval. On the, and I don't know how Robert's Rules works on this, but I realized that in the meeting minutes of last month, there was a pretty big error, and it was on a number, and I didn't scroll down enough to actually pick it up when we were doing the corrections. And so I want to bring it up because this was my mistake, so I'm bringing it up under old business. It's a correction, but it wasn't a correction. It wasn't a mistake that was made. It wasn't a typo. Last month, I do remember this. I read off that the town, I'm going to read it right here. It was upon a motion on the town government for October 2019, we approved $6,375,710. I look back at my notes and I realized that was the combined Board of Ed and town. And so, and as I was going to bring it up in the minutes, and I realized I read it wrong and it was reported right. So under old business, I just want to make sure that the correction is made, and I stated that incorrectly. So it should be $1,866,552.
So I can't go shopping.
No, no, I just pulled, whatever the difference is out, so sorry about that, but.
Yeah, just not where you want it to.
So I meant to bring that correction up before and I forgot. And then I read off just now and I was like, oh, that's right, I forgot to do that. So just for correction purposes, want to make sure that was covered. Also under old business, There were capital plan presentations that were made since our last meeting. That was on November 21st. I know a couple of us were present at that meeting. It's always very helpful to hear what's going on with the capital plan and what's being requested by the departments. I just wanted to say that, we have an $850,000 budget now, and there was $2.4 million worth of requests from the departments. So the Board of Selectmen have a little bit of work to do to pare that down, but this is, the beginning of the process, as we know. So it was very enlightening. I think there were quite a few needs there, and I think as we learned that certain things can be pushed off, and as usual, it's going to be vetted out. So I just wanted to mention that there's a lot of requests, and we have a budget, and we're going to have to. Well, the Board of Selectmen are going to have to pare it down.
Thank you for reminding us of the pairing exercise that we're
Yes.
about to get into. One thing you might want to consider, however, is this board, as well as your board, as well as the Board of Selectmen, had set some thresholds for a number of years to get the capital expenditures up to a reasonable level. So, and I think we were in the $1 million range not that long ago. And that seemed to have been the target that both the previous administration and this board felt was a reasonable target. So don't be surprised if you see it come in around that number. I'm just not using a crystal ball, but all things being equal, if there's some relief on some areas on the budget, you may see that number come back up.
And that will also be discussed at more length at the workshops that are going to come up in January. Yeah. Okay. Under new business, just wanted to bring up, just so that the audience knows, the Board of Finance, just about all of us, we're at a joint budget meeting with the Board of Education this evening prior to our regular meeting. It is, we like to think, very unique that a lot of towns do not do this. We've been doing this for as long as I've been on the board. Meeting with the Board of Education to discuss where their opportunities and challenges are coming into the budget season. I think it's helpful to kind of give us a little bit of a platform to realize where things are. On the operations side for Board of Education, Ted Sands kind of starts off the discussion, and historically Mr. Gammerman has been kind of our liaison and go-to for the education, this subcommittee, so to speak, that we meet with. And we usually meet the first, at December, we meet for a first initial meeting, and then we have the workbooks, the budget work, binders, budget books. We will get those, I think, on January 3rd, we heard tonight. And then we meet prior to our next meeting on January 21st, which is going to be on a Tuesday, which is because of Martin Luther King. But we meet for about an hour and a half prior to review those books and get into more depth in those. So, and it's a very helpful process. So we're not going in blind with a Board of Education budget that we're not aware of. So Ken, did you want to say anything regarding
Well,
that?
Dr. Freeman hit some general headlines. As far as insurance is concerned, he felt that it was going to be minimal impact in the new budget. Special ed, he saw us perhaps going in a deficit of $125,000, which would be a lot better than we had last year. And that apparently, and this is a statewide factor, there's about a 12% the number of students in special ed is about 12% in our district, and that parallels what it is almost throughout the state. The big factor is salaries. 65% of his budget is in salaries, and they do expect to have some staff reductions. And as far as the overall salary increases, it'll average about 2.7%. I think that's where he said it was going to be.
It was under 3, I know that.
Under 3, yeah. Capital, he felt, would be about 1% of the total budget. As far as enrollment is concerned, we look as though we were going to be dropping by about 70 students, which still is a healthier position than a lot of our neighboring districts. He's looking for ways to combine with other districts to control expenses. As far as bonding is concerned, the HVAC Phase 2 is going to be a big factor. He
That's
sees...
at Baldwin.
Pardon me?
That's at Baldwin, and there's a project at
Oh, that's
Lakes.
at Baldwin and Lakes.
Yeah.
Those two areas. The needs assessment, which apparently was done about 7 or 8 years ago, they're preparing for a new needs assessment. And we're going to have that budget presentation come up. We operated with just headlines. There were no paper shared with us. They never are on the first meeting. But as Mike said, we're going to be getting materials on the first week of January. Give us a chance to look those over, and then meeting again for an hour and a half with the Board of Ed in this follow-up meeting. It's a marvelous process because it keeps us on a cooperative basis through most of the budget construction period. So we're looking forward to that, and apparently from the preliminaries, it was going to be a modest proposal. Let's see.
That was the quote from Dr. Freeman, and basically the Board of Education were in line with that. I would add that you had mentioned about the tuition. All of these numbers, tuition being the number one, or one of the top drivers, is, again, like we were talking about investment reports. It's a snapshot. I mean, this can change. We heard that there's, there could be 1, 2, 3 students that come in, and that number changes. So I think the important thing to note is that, yes, there was no paper and there were no numbers shared. All of this is in the process right now. And one of the things I had indicated during the meeting was, in the past, we've had, one of the things was asked of us is where we wanted to be. And I always feel that's a little bit disingenuous to throw out a number of what percentage we want. Because, again, they've got to figure out what the value is. I think that's kind of micromanaging as soon as you say, well, we want this percentage increase. I think we need to hear what they have to say. I think this town is very consensus-oriented. This is going to work the same way with the town, on the town side with the departments and what the Board of Selectmen come up with. So I think we have a very good process, but as every year, it'll be challenging in terms of the balance of all this. So.
And again, as far as the public is concerned, we were going to come out with one budget, not with 2 budgets. So one has to be balanced along with the other against the needs and abilities of our town to support whatever budget we present.
And then the state and the debt service. And this is the last year of the high school having an impact on our debt service, and then we start to decline after next year, or as of next year. So. Next budget.
Our debt declines.
Our debt declines.
Hopefully we flourish.
Yes. So, I just wanted to, anybody else have anything to add to that under new business?
Next.
Good summation.
Why, thank you. Thank you, Ken. Public forum, item number 9. Anybody wishing to address public forum? Mary Jane? You can bring up whatever you'd like under old business, new business, yes.
So 2 things.
Yes.
Your next meeting, you'll have the audit presentation.
Oh, yes.
Tried to get that for today.
Thank you, yeah.
This close, it's in final review today. Almost got it for this month. Had to wait for some of our numbers on pension and OPEB. The other item is that first week of January, the RFP will go out for auditing services. So prepared
And we
to
have our
do that.
subcommittee set
Yep.
on that, which is Bob,
Me.
Megan,
Megan.
and Jeff.
So just wanted to.
Great. Thank you. You actually did bring to my attention the audit when we were trying to do the agenda, and I forgot to bring it up. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else?
Happy holidays.
Oh, that's right.
Perfect. I was going to say, and on behalf of the Board of Finance, to all the colleagues here around the table and the audience and at home, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. So, with that,
Healthy.
yes. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
3 minutes from now, which